Hey people, 6,000 plus years ago, the entire world was telling the story of the raven being the creator gods and bringing the sun, moon, and stars and finding Adam a wife. The language is hidden in here, but the common raven is called the corvus, and this V is interchangeable. You can see it here, the V and the B are the same letter. And so some of them put the dot in there to let you know how they want you to pronounce it, the B or the V. But this was worldwide, and the stories lasted in America's best because they weren't affected as much by the Roman language change. But this name comes from, because of its black plumage, croaking call, and diet of carrion. So carrion is a polite way of saying the dead. The on is light, and to carry on the light. And so this was their job, in the stories they were often the psychopomps, and that was their job, was to not judge, but to carry the souls on. You can see here in the British that V is now a B. And so he appeared in common stories from the Greek, Celtic, Norse, Pacific Northwest, and Roman mythology, associated with god of Apollo. Apollo sent white raven or crow in some versions to spy on his lover, Cronus. So in many of the stories it was a white raven and was turned black by the smut of fire in different ways. Corvus is to give orbit, and you can see the Ra and Vin, or Ra Vin, and so Vin is the word for sun. The Ra Vin, the first sun, the Robin. And so this corvus is the raven in the sky. You can see it here coming out of Virgo. They got this Virgo twisted around, but this line should run here, and this is supposed to look like a woman's crotch, the Virgo giving birth, the great mother giving birth to the corvus. It's said to be the first bird mentioned in the Bible. And you see in the Greek it's called the corax, and in the Hebrew they say it's spelled O-U-R-B, the orb. And it was the first bird that Noah turned out after the flood to search for land. But if you look in the original, it's actually spelled the O-R-B, the orb. And it's said in the Talmud that the raven is described as the only one on the ark to copulate during the flood, so he was punished. So that's why he was turned black. And he was forced to ejaculate his seed into the female raven's mouth as a means of reproduction. So you see that there's more to the story. You got to read between the lines. In Islamic culture, the Quran's version says that the corvus, the raven, was the one who taught Cain how to bury his murdered brother. And that goes along with this story of the Sioux, how a white raven used to warn the buffalo of approaching hunters. Eventually an angry shaman caught the bird and threw it into a fire, turning it black. So it's on this coat of arms of the corvus. So when I started this video, I was originally going to make another beginner's video to show people how the language works. But this letter K is the open palm. It means to give. And so the corvus means to give orbit. And so that's why he taught Cain to bury his brother. And that's how he would tell the buffalo that the hunters were coming. And this has to do with this carry-on. And so what's happened is they're given orbit. If you look up and you see birds orbiting around you, vultures, or any type of carry-on, it means that there's something dying close by. They're waiting for it to die, or maybe the jackals have already got something. They're waiting for the jackals to leave so they can come clean up the carcass. So if you look at the cultural depictions of ravens in Wikipedia, it's got a ton of stories here, and you have to read between the lines and all of it. And it said that the kingdom of England would fall if the ravens of the Tower of London are removed. So that's the greatest power of England, would be the ravens. And so there's a ton of stories about it, and it's often mixed up with the crow, and it's hard to tell the difference. You got to get right up on them before you can tell. The raven's much bigger. But the raven's known as the creator and the trickster, or the evil trickster. And most of these stories come out of the Americas. And you can also look at this Raven Tales in Wiki, and it'll tell you all the tales of mostly North American and up around the Irish lands. The North talk about the raven being the creator. Raven always a magical creature, able to take the form of human, even inanimate objects. He's a keeper of secrets, a trickster, often focused on satisfying his own gluttony. So he's an evil trickster, but he's also the creator, the one that brought the sun, moon, and stars, and fire. He brought the fire, and some of the stories say that's how he turned black. And he dropped the fire in the rocks, and that's why when you strike rocks together, fire comes out. So the Tlingit had the most stories about him, and he's commonly called the Yeil, Y-E-I-L, the Yeil. And they have a ton of stories about him. So here with the Zuni, they changed it up a little bit, and they consider him, the raven, to be a prankster, but not an evil trickster. And they associate all the evil trickster with the coyote, or the jackal. And so that would be why in the Hebrew that they say the Zuni, everything associated with the name the Zuni, oh, those are the harlots, because they were blaming the jackal and the coyote for being the evil trickster. And they got a ton of names, but they all have the Zuni in common. So in the Celtic, the Irish, that the ravens are associated with the Welsh god Bran the Blessed, the brother of Branwen, whose name translates to the raven, the Branwen. And so these Irish, these are the original, the writers of the Bible. The story they tell you is wrong, but you see it in the word Irish. It's where the word Jerusalem come from. I-R-S-H-L-M. L-M is of from. Is where the Irish are from, Jerusalem. But you can see this word, the bara, B-R-A, and these are the first three words of the Hebrew Bible. Bara, set, bara, from Yel, as in the Tlingit name for the raven. So you can get a better reading on this Bible if you just take one of these old Paleo Bibles and put a mirror on it. Just take and flip it around, and you can see the letters better. B-R-A-S-I-T, Barasit, Bara. And anything starts with an A reads backwards. It's ancient alchemy. All the gods' names were just started with an A. It means read that word backwards. It means from the old language, the Adam language. M from Y-E-L-A, from Yel. Barasit, Bara, from Yel to the Shamis, wet ears. And anytime a M is the last on a word, it means pronounce it as a S. And you can find the word Moses, which actually only comes up in the Torah one time here in Exodus 4. But you can't read the whole Bible with this. You have to go to the one with the punctuation, because there's actually punctuation before this word that tells you to read it backwards and forwards. And so this is M-U-S-I, and then it reads back the other way, S-U-S. This is an M when it begins the word, but when it finishes the word, it's pronounced as S. And so what is it saying is from uses us. Moses from uses us. So this is the word they say is Moses, and it's just an M-S-E. And in the Greek, most of the time it'll say promotion. But this is Moses here, M-U-S. You see my, M-Y, and then attack, M-U-S-I-S-U-S. From uses us. Moses us. From uses us. And they say this means makes, and it only comes up this one time. And it goes along with these, looks like about 100 other words. And there is another whole list of words that they'll give the meaning makes to, or created. And it's with the O-S. Anything with an O-S in it, O-S-E. So this is what drove me to find this. I was going to make a movie and show how I learned how to read this. And I used this old Paleo Bible, so I did look down and see their interpretation so I could read this. And so this come off of the first chapter in Exodus 1. And I was going to use this because there's no punctuation until this fifth line. But you can see it says that the veil, W-A-L-E. So the Vav is the W, and so this is the veil from smut, and this is what they say is, and the names of the sons of Israel. But it says the veil smut, Bing his rule. Bing is a mark of time. Bing, 1 o'clock. Bing, bing, 2 o'clock, to mark the time of his rule. And this is the wall, W-A-L-E. And so this comes from this ancient word whale, V-A-L-E, W-A-L-E. And so this is that thick board around the top of a boat, and it's to protect it, the plank running along the side of a wooden ship. And so it'd be right around the main deck level. You'll plank it with a thicker board, and so that's the only board that rubs. And the reason is because of the structure inside the boat. It can take the most force, and that's a veil, and that's where your word wall come from. It's also where your word valley comes from. The veil is a valley, and anytime you're in a valley, you can't have a valley without having two walls around you, two big old mountains, the veil. And so that's what that is, the wall of smut, S-M-U-T. And so this is called the names, which is correct. It the consume from the connected writings. The S, Shem, is to consume. You see it here. It represents fire, and it means to consume. And then the M is the waters, and it means from. And then the Vav, the U, is it was actually the pin that held your wheel on. It means to connect your wheel, and you might see it on your wagon. You have a little cotter pin through the hole to hold your wheel on. It means connect, the Vav. And then the T is the last letter, and it means the writings, the marks. And so to consume from the connected writings is the wall of the names, the same what Bing, mark the time of his rule. And so you're looking at the wall of the names of the time of his rule. The bays, the E, the B-A-Y-M is pronounced S, the bays. And so bays, if you're looking at a chart of names, and you're going to have rows this way and you're going to have bays this way. Your rows is the first thing you learn on day one, the row and the bay. And if you're looking in a boat, you have rows of rowers, and then you have bays. This would be your plane seat. These are the inboard or in the outboard rowers. So that would be the bay and the row. And then this is what they say means Egypt, and MXRIME. So most of the time this Egypt comes up, it won't have this E on the end, and this E is added just so this M turns into an M instead of an S. And so it's the bays from MX, the mix RYME, the mix rhyme, the poetry of the mixer, the mix rhyme. Starts with A, it reads backwards, TO, 2. And then there is no Jacob in the Bible. This is JOQB, and it means the joke in. And if you look at the Hebrew, they'll never have the dot in this B because it's a V. And so it tells you it's either joke of or joke in. B means house. The B is house, and it means in. The joke in. And then it starts with A, and it reads backwards, SIA. The joke in C. So this word joke in is where all this language comes from. And so if there's a tack here, it reads backwards. This means BNQO or PHO, info. The info to joke in. When I get really, really drunk, I tell my mom all about it, but I add a little more to it, and I make a joke out of it. So you don't know whether to believe it or not. You kind of have to read between the lines to get the info of the joke in. To see, and then to bite, BITU. And so this is one they say is in the house, and it's to connect in it to. ITU is the ancient word for bitumen, BITU, and it means it to, and it means something that's very sticky. Is it to. Bitumen is sticky. It sticks to you. Anything it touches it sticks to. And so to connect in it to, bow, BAW, bow. It means the front, and they'll say this means came. And so you can see it's N, B, N, A, power, and valve connected. You can see the valve here. It looks like a little valve pin to hold your wheel on. And the power connected. So if somebody has power connected, that's who you bow to them. That's where your word bow come from. You bow to the king. And so this word wall, to power, bind, L, the tongue, or bind life. To wall them in. To the power, bind life. To wall them in. The same what? To consume from the connected writings, Bing, his rule, IS rule. The time is rule. The suns should be read SUNS. Your 12 different suns of the day. The first sun is at 6 o'clock in the morning, and the noon sun's at 12 bings. And so the bays are the bay from. Which bay is it? The inboard or the outboard bay? The bays to mix rhyme, from the mix rhyme. And then they give this the meaning too, and every other time you see this come up, it's just got no meaning. Oh, in fact, I was wrong. I'm glad I found this, because they actually give this a meaning, in, with, against. But this word comes up 12,000 other times. It's one of the first words in the Bible, and they'll give it no meaning. It's one of the biggest. It's the most used word in the Bible, given no meaning at all. To the joke in, JOQB. You see the B doesn't have a dot in it, so it's a V. The joke of, the joke in C, SIA, to see. To see in it too. You see this doesn't have a dot in it, so it's UV of it to, not bit to, but of it to connect in it to. Bow, and the powers connected. To connect the names in the time of his rule, the bays from the mixed rhyme to the joke in C, to in it to bow, in its power connected. And then it gives you this mixed rhyme. And so that's the first one in the mixed rhyme, is the robin. You see there's no dot in this B here. The raven, R-A-U-V-N. So you see it here in this wall of kings in Egypt, and you have rows and bays. Rows in one direction and bays in the other. You're known as the Wall of Kings. But this word word 854 2, I'm glad I found this. It should be one of the first words, being it starts with the A. But you see it comes up here first, and it's 853 now. And they give it no meaning. It comes up 7,034 times like this, and 11,050 total, which means it'll have a W on it, Vav on it, or something else. But anything is the knowledge of the writings. A is knowledge, T is writings or marks, and they don't want you to have any knowledge of the writings. So it'll be in red if they give it a meaning, but you see in this hole, I think I've found one before that it had a meaning. And when I first started doing this, it used to show all 7,000 of them, but now it's just too much, and it just stops here in Genesis. It don't go any farther. It don't have any room. But that's what the beginning of this says, as in receipt. And the receipts is the writings you get back for your goods. In receipt, in Ramiel, in Ramiel, he was the fallen angel, the fallen Bara, the fallen Yel, the fallen raven. In first knowledge, B-R-A, in first knowledge. In first knowledge, consume the work seals. First learn the work seals. And that's why I was going to redo this first one using Exodus, because it explains a lot better about the work seals in the writings. In first knowledge, to bear from a yell to the shamis what hears, E-A-R-X. What the shamis what's listening, shamis what hears. And so that's what it's saying, is in the wall of the names, what bang, what time his rule, the bay from mix, from the cross rhyme to joke in, to make see the center in, to see, to in it to bow, in the powers connected. And then it tells you this mix rhyme, and it's telling you to put the mix rhyme in bays and rows, and then you won't see any punctuation come in until this line and the jerk, and then you see this tack before the joke in. So now it's the info, B-Q-O, to info, to joke in the center to see the information, the joke in, the sabos, to cut off nips, to cut off the tips. There's a lot of information in these first 4 chapters, and the story we got about the Exodus is a crock, and it's actually talking about how they debased the money, and that would be their honey, is to debase, and the way they do this is to sail, to S-A-L-E, to sail this from scanty and from grit, bite, B-I-T-E, to bite, KLI, and has a tack, reads backwards, PS, to clips, cusp, and clease in, to smelt and smite from, all make in banks. And so to clips, cusp, that was the old way they used to shave a little bit off of your money, or they would cut it open and take all the gold out and fill it with steel. To clips, cusp, and clease in. Clease in means to bring together. You know, if you're hammering it together, however you force it together, to clease in. And to smelt, this means to melt, to smelt, S-M-L-T. You melt metals and pour them into a mold. To smelt and smite, to hammer it into shape. All to make in bank. Reach backwards and forwards. M-K. M-K. I-N-B-N-K. B-N-I-K. To make in banks. And that's what they're doing now, is they debase the money and they get rid of all their American currency, and they're fixing. There's a couple more tricks that's talking about what they're fixing to do in here before they take off. But America's on the way down. Time for people to wake up, especially you Christians. You're the problem. You know, all these sheep are walking in one direction, and me by myself, I can't turn around and walk in the other direction. I have the whole entire Christian nation walking in the wrong direction and pushing me with them. All right, I'm going to cut this off here. Good day.